Yeah, I just saw that.
You should start streaming on Twitch.
Okay. Arithmetic series. Take 2. Okay, so the idea behind an arithmetic series is we are looking at the sum of the arithmetic series, okay? A series of numbers where it's not a pattern. Yes, there's a pattern, but in the past it was just listed with a comma, right? You know, first number, comma, second number, comma, third number. With a series, we're talking about adding the numbers. So it's a series of numbers that are added. And our big thing is going to be finding the sum. As you notice up there, it's the sum of a finite arithmetic series. What does it mean to be finite? It ends, right? So all of the series we are looking at today are finite in that they all end. Now, as we look at arithmetic series, they're going to have to end if we're finding the sum. Because what do I mean when I talk about finding the sum? Addition, right? So we're looking at adding all of the numbers up. If the series of numbers keeps going on and on forever, I can't add them up because that sum is always changing. Okay, so we are only, as we talk about arithmetic series, only looking at the finite series. So, first thing we're given is we have a formula. The sum, S of n, so when you see S of n, that means we're finding the sum of n number of terms of an arithmetic series, A1 plus A2 plus so on and so forth, AN, is given. There's actually 2 formulas here, but I'm only going to use the first one. So I'm going to use S of n equals n over 2 times A1 plus AN. The second one is fine, it works, you're welcome to use it, but it's not the one I usually teach with. Now, let's talk about what these different pieces stand for. S, I just told you S stands for the sum. And since it's S of n, that is the sum of n number of terms. What does n stand for? Number of terms. I just said it, didn't I? At least I know he was listening. Okay, n stands for the number of terms. So that's probably the trickiest part, if you want me to be honest, is finding how many terms there are in a sequence. A1. What's A of 1 stand for? The first term. That's not new, is it? So A of 1 is the first term. What about A of n? Okay, we've been calling it the nth term. In this series, if we're finding the sum of n number of terms, A of n is going to be specifically the
We're supposed to guess here?
I'm just debating.
Oh, we're supposed to be saying something.
Well, I'm looking. I don't feel like you guys have keyed in quite on what I'm looking for here. Okay, it's the nth term, but if we're finding the sum of n number of terms, A of n is specifically the last term, is what I was going for there.
Good guess time.
Okay, so it's the idea that it's the last term. So basically, in order to find the sum of a finite series, you have to know the first term, the last term, and how many terms there are altogether. Okay, so let's look at example 1 and try it. It's finding the sum of a finite arithmetic series. And example A is what is the sum of the even integers from 2 to 100. Okay, so what does that series look like to you? Like if we start listing it. What is it? 2 plus 4 plus 6 plus 8, so on and so forth, all the way up to 100. Just so we have a visual. Because here they gave us a description, but not a visual. So I think it'll help if you have a visual. Now, in order to find the sum of this finite arithmetic series, I'm going to use the formula S of n equals n divided by 2 times a1 plus a of n. Okay. What important information can you tell me about this series? We need to what? Okay, and what is the last term? 100. Okay, so the last term is 100, which means that's going to go in for a of n. What else do we know? The first term is 2. So a of 1 is 2. And what's the other piece of information we have to know? N. We need to know, this is the easiest n we'll find all day. This one's a little more obvious than some of the others we will do, but we'll talk about ways to do this. What do you know? How many terms are there going to be here?
50.
50? Why 50? Okay, 100 divided by 2. The idea here that there's 100, and then what's going on each time? We're going up by 2, yes? Because we're going up by 2, 100 divided by 2, which is 50. Now, that works out nicely because it starts right at the beginning at 2, and it ends at a nice even number. When we get to the others, we'll talk about ways that we can use to find the missing term, or how many terms there are. Okay, use your formula. If it's S of n, that means I'm doing the sum of how many terms? 50. So S of 50 means I'm doing the sum of the first 50 terms in this series. So n divided by 2 means I'm going to do 50 divided by 2 times a1, which is 2, plus a of n, which really, in this case, a of n is a of 50, if you will. It's the 50th term. And so it's going to be 2 plus 100. Okay, do the math. Officially in the parentheses, 2 plus 100 is 102. 50 divided by 2 is 25. 25 times 102 is 2,550. Okay. Anyone try and do it by hand without the formula? No? No one did that in this class?
Why would we introduce those two?
I would do the first 25, do the last one.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. Okay? Just because in my morning class, yes, I had people that are like, oh, hey, I want to see if I can add those and get the right answer. It is technically doable, guys. Now, I'm not encouraging that because there's so many ways you can hit a wrong button on the calculator, so easily, so quickly. I'm definitely encouraging learning the formula. If I throw a really huge number at you on the test or something, adding them by hand isn't going to be the best option. Now I've got people adding them by hand instead. So,
I'm listening still.
Just work to understand the formula. Not to say you can't play around with the calculator, but, work to understand the formula. Okay, questions on A?
I'm halfway there already.
I'm at 36.
38. Okay.
You're going to get 2.
Ireland has joined us. She
Okay.
joined the call.
I'm going to move on and try B. B is what is the sum of the finite arithmetic series? 4 plus 9 plus 14 plus 19 plus 24, so on and so forth, up to 100. Now, oh, I didn't think about that option.
Yeah, I just pressed
Okay.
enter and kept going.
My formula S of n equals n over 2 times A1 plus A of n. What can you identify? A of 1 is?
I got the right answer.
A of 1 is 4? Okay, what else do you know? A of n, that last term is 99. I can't say A of what yet because I don't know how many terms there are. So we know A of 1, we know A of n. The other thing we need to know? N. In order to find n, it's going to be most helpful to know what's going on. How do you get from one term to the next? Can we see that we're adding 5 here? That's going to have to figure into how you find n. Do you guys have any thoughts here? On the right track. He suggested 99 divided by 5. Now, the problem with doing 99 divided by 5 is you're not going to get a whole number answer, are you?
Is it like 4?
No, you actually want to use 5, not 4.
What if I just start adding 5?
Let's do it.
And again, okay, yes, you could write out all the numbers and find out how many numbers there are that way, but that's not what I'm advising, okay? So I had someone this morning, they said, well, what about dividing by 4? Because we skip 4 numbers. But you want to divide by the 5. Now, the problem is if you do 99 divided by 5, you're going to get a decimal.
So can you round up?
Well, so there the question becomes, do we round up or do we round down?
Say round up.
Okay, and in this case, if we bump that up to 100, that technically also means this bumps up to 5. And what do you know? 100 divided by 5 is going to be 20. And 20 is the correct number. And it works because this first number is 5. Now, here, because we're adding 5 each time, and that put the first number at 5. Now, the catch is just rounding up and dividing by that number won't always work. Because, if you jump ahead and glance down here, there's a bunch of numbers missing at the beginning. And so that's where you have to be careful. Okay? As I said, in this particular case, yes, I did do 100 divided by 5. And I got 20. Now, other thoughts of how we could get there?
I like my way.
Writing them all out?
Yeah, I've already done it.
I'm going to veto that one. At least for a class-wide lesson, I'm going to veto that one. Okay?
Truth did not find the way.
Well, the key is be a decimal.
You could round it down to never mind.
Okay. And so, what it comes down to here is, in this case, we're not really missing any numbers at the beginning. It starts as low as it can start. Okay? What I was debating, maybe I'll wait and show it on the next one. There's kind of a little trick you could use. Did you have something, Sarah? Well, we don't want to change this A1 value, like over here. But if you round it down to 95 and divide by 5, you're at 19 instead of 20.
So would that be wrong?
Okay. Shortcut I was trying to show. Okay, and it'll make sense for this next one. And I don't know if anyone's tried out there, but I've had people that generally come up with, if we do highest minus lowest, 99 minus 4. There's a slight issue with subtracting, but we'll take care of it in the end. 99 minus 4 is the 95. Divide by 5, and we're back at that 19. And here's the deal you have to realize is when you use that technique, then you always have to add 1 back on. Because by subtracting off this first number here, doing 99 minus 4, you're subtracting off a term. Now, it puts us in the ballpark. You just have to add 1 on every time. And that will be helpful. It'll make more sense in the next one. Okay? Huh? Okay.
Like you're just like subtracting and adding things. And you know what? Go ahead and take
Okay. Let's do this formula. Was not my plan. Do the formula. So, we're finding S of how many terms? 20. There's 20 terms. N divided by 2, so 20 divided by 2. A of 1 is 4, plus A of N is 99. Do the math. 20 divided by 2 is 10. Hey, you can do this one without thinking of a calculator. 4 plus 99? 103. 10 times 103. What do you do when you multiply by 10? Add a 0. So 1,030? Okay, let's try C. Sum of the finite arithmetic series 14 plus 17 plus 20 plus 23 plus 116. Okay, I'm going to write down the formula we're using. S of n equals n over 2 times a1 plus a of n. What information do you know about this sequence or this series? What do you know? A of 1 is 14. We also know A of n is 116.
Okay, so
What else is helpful to know even though the formula doesn't ask it? Okay, you need to identify what is our pattern here. And the fact that we are increasing by 3, does that sound familiar?
so if you were to you would do 116 minus 14, and then divide by 3, and then add.
Uh-huh.
So 35.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'm less confused.
Okay, so we need to find n. We need to find the number of terms. Now, because we're adding 3, but this doesn't start to 14, that's where you get the catch there. Okay? Because yes, you can take 116 to the closest number that divides by 3, but then you still have all these skipped numbers at the beginning that you have to watch out for. Sarah? Okay, so what I would suggest is that you subtract the highest and the lowest. So it's 116 minus 14. You're going to take that number and divide by, what is it that we're adding? Divide by 3. And then because we subtracted that first term off, we're always going to have to plus 1. Is it working? 116 minus minus 14 would be what? 102 divided by 3 is 34 plus 1 is 35. That's my suggestion if it's an awkward one like this that's hard to figure out. Okay, have you done the math for the formula? S of n, I'm finding S of 35. 35 over 2 times 14 plus 116. 35 divided by 2 you could say 35 halves, or I put 17.5 times 14 plus 116, 130. 17.5 times 130. $2,275. Okay. Are we okay with C now? Okay. Example 2 before we finish for today. Yep, we got to talk words. A company pays a $10,000 bonus to salespeople at the end of their first 50 weeks if they make 10 sales in the first week and then improve their sales numbers by 2 each week thereafter. One salesperson qualified for the bonus with the minimum possible number of sales. How many sales did the salesperson make in week 50? So that question is, how many did the salesperson make in just week 50? And then, how many sales did the salesperson make in all 50 weeks? Let's start with, what does this series look like? Where does it start? Okay. 10 sales in the first week. So we're going to start with 10. And then improving 2 each week thereafter, right? So next week it would be 12. Then it'd be 14. Then it'd be 16. And we're going to go all the way to how far? To the 50th term, yes? We're not going to 50. We're going to the 50th term, the 50th week. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, things to identify in this series. Well, hold on. What can you identify that we have? What is 10? Okay. A of 1 is 10. And we are increasing by 2. What is that 2 called? Okay. You have to go back in the lessons that you have stuck in your head. You have to go back 2 lessons to where it was D, because we're adding. Okay, so this sounds familiar, right? Now, the first question is, how many sales did the salesperson make in week 50? How do I find how many the salesperson made in week 50 only?
So, hear me out. Here.
What'd you say, Sarah? Yes, we're trying to find A of 50. Which I just made you think back a couple of days. I would suggest you think back a couple of days. Did we have a way to find A of 50? Yeah, what kind of equation do we want to find A of 50 in this situation? Remember your explicit? Now, specifically, you're looking at the arithmetic section, right? Not geometric. We're going to look at the arithmetic explicit formula back from lesson 9.2. That was A of n equals A of 1 plus n minus 1 times d. Remember that? It's been a moment, hasn't it? Well, we've got to remember it. So our general formula is, in order to find A of n, you do A of 1, which is 10, plus n minus 1 times d, which is 2. That's our general formula. Specifically, we want to use it to find a of what? A of 50, which that means what goes in place for n? 50. So it's going to be 10 plus 50 minus 1 times 2. 10 plus 49 times 2. 49 times 2 is 98 plus 10, which is 108. So, what is this 108? The last term, and it's 108 sales in week 50. Okay, 108 sales in week 50. Now, I heard the comment it was the last term, which means technically it's that 50th term over there, isn't it? Sorry, I'm off the screen a little bit. Okay, because now we have a second question to ask or answer. The second question wants in all 50 weeks. First question is just in week 50, so we want the 50th term. What do we want for all 50 weeks? We're going to do the sum. Isn't that what we're working on today? So we're going to use the formula S of n equals n divided by 2, a1 plus a of n. So we're trying to find the sum of 50, the sum of the first 50 terms. So S of 50, 50 divided by 2 times a of 1, which is 10, plus a of n. What's a of n? The 108 we just found. So you have to use that 108 we just found. Do the math. 50 divided by 2 is 25. 10 plus 108, 118. 25 times 118. 2,950. And what is that 2,950? Yeah, that is the total sales in all 50 weeks. Okay. So, you've got formulas. You have to know how to use them. And also notice that they're building, right? Like today we had to go back and use that formula from the arithmetic sequence.
So, once you get A50, you can do it by hand. I know you can because I did it by hand.
Sure.
When I get it wrong,
Okay.
I'm going to test if I do that.
Lesson 9.4 is available. You can start it, but it will not be due until Tuesday.
I'm assuming we can't do everything on it then.
No, you would not be able to do everything yet. We have not talked about, the next thing we need to talk about is summation notation and how that sigma works, which is the next thing on your notes.
Can you say that again, please? Slower for my slow mind.
Summation notation and sigma is what we'll next be talking about. So that will be Monday.